Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is the podcast full of motivation, inspiration, and education on your path towards success with myopia management. And we got a great episode for you today, some very exciting news. And I thought, why not have on my regular guest contributor, Dr. Cary Herzberg, on to talk about it. If you don't know, Cary is not just my dad. I grew up in his practice, and it was a pioneer myopia management practice. He's one of the all-time greats in orthokeratology. He's been doing myopia management for 40 plus years. Cary, welcome back to the podcast.
Well, thanks, man. It's great to be here, especially with the news we have to share. I'm excited.
Yeah, and let's get right to it. The news is that it's been announced that the FDA is forming an advisory committee, basically to review the SID 101 FDA approval process to get involved in that. And so I thought, why don't we talk about that and what
Yeah.
that means exactly? So, Cary, let's run us through it.
Yeah,
Why is that significant?
it's like they're doing it's a redo, Matt. It's a the FDA's getting a second chance here. It's like they dropped the ball originally on SID 101, which when it came out of the blue that they hadn't approved it. It was like, what's going on here? Because all the compelling evidence that was in favor of SID 101 and the critical nature of this is the crux of our whole myopia management tools. I mean, this is the central tool that we're going to be using. It's critical we have an FDA approval on it. And the fact that they didn't do it the first time around, and the fact that they didn't render any kind of reason why, that what they said didn't do, Sydnexis didn't do, they appealed that decision and then they gave them a redo. So here we go. Here's the second try. And hopefully they
Right.
get it right this time. We're all waiting for this.
What is an advisory committee like? What role is that going to play in this process, do you think, Cary?
Yeah, it's going to be huge because they're going to get to choose doctors and practitioners and scientists that are involved in myopia. This time around, they'll get people who actually know the topic and can actually, make a decision. Before, it's like, these people would have different areas of specialty and who knows what it was. The other thing that's holding this thing up is the fact that the last time the FDA approved a medication for adolescents was, I think it's like many, many decades ago. So this would be something that would really, kind of move the needle for them. I think they need to stay up on this stuff because, I understand why they take the extra pause and everything because these are kids, that we're dealing with here. But, in this kind of a case with low dose atropine, I mean, this is this is about as close as we can get to a no brainer as you want. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that the FDA will then finally, with this new advisory committee that's more attuned to myopia and has had experience with it, that will understand the importance of to approve this.
My question is, what do you think the advisory committee will focus on first, or what will they focus on most? Like, what are they going to be looking at primarily, do you think?
Yeah, when I can only use my experience in front of the FDA on this thing because I was at the original myopia meeting in Silver Springs a couple decades ago when we first started talking about a myopia indication, for any of these devices or the pharmaceuticals. So they were looking at what they consider meaningful is they want, a certain percentage of this, and they were talking about even 30% effectiveness would lower the chances of high myopia, which is really what they're focused on right now, is high myopia. So that's what they're really looking for. And that, in our meeting in Silver Springs, they said something as low as 30% is for them is meaningful because it makes I think it was like 50% reduction in eye myopia if it's done at the appropriate times, which is something we could talk about because, that's where atropine really comes in. It's really the critical piece we need here to really do the job for myopia control and prevention.
But let's run through it real quickly again. Like,
Sure.
there's why the disconnect, especially with the device side of the FDA approving, or giving the FDA authorization for Stellest lenses. Like, why do we have this trouble with the pharmaceutical side?
Yeah, it's the drug division. It's a separate thing entirely. And I think what we're running into in this point is just like I said, it's been decades since there was an approved drug for children, for adolescents. So I think there's a reticence there to try to do something. They really had to be compelled to do it. And I think a lack of understanding on their part was really a kind of critical in this and what this myopia. But I'm wondering if in our own thinking, we really haven't gotten to the point yet we need to get to, which is to really to look at myopia properly. For years, myopia has been thought of as being like a sugar daddy to the professionals because it makes the greatest part of their profits are sometimes shared in their dispensaries. So this has been a profitable thing for them, and to give that up then in favor of doing preventive work, to seems I could gather with some of my
Yeah.
colleagues might have a problem with that.
Yeah, go into that more, the preventative aspect, because you
Yeah,
see this in a way that I think most ECPs are missing, so I want you to lay it out for us about like what this means for the future, about preventative care, about myopia and the global epidemic by the year 2050 roughly half the world's population, according to the World
right.
Health Organization, will be nearsighted. So, like, what are you how are you seeing this that other people or other ECPs are not picking up on?
Yeah, I'm glad to have that opportunity, Matt. You you have to think about this. No amount of myopia is safe. Okay, there's risk factors. Young human being to that risk if you could avoid it. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look at the fact that every diopter of myopia makes an impact. Again, it increases risks in myopic macular degeneration, retinal detachments, glaucoma, other concerns. It varies in the condition, but it increases a risk. And that risk is unnecessary, especially when we know we can have the tools in place to do something about it. Now, the thinking that has to occur, and I want people to think about this for a moment. 10 years ago, more than a decade ago, at Vision by Design, which is a conference that you have championed, Matt, and put together, we had Professor Donald Tam from the Singapore Eye Institute, talking to basically the godfather of low dose of atropine. He was talking about treating hyperopes. This was over a decade ago, instead of waiting until they became myopic. Now, at that point, we didn't realize that, what was really at stake here because uh, we now understand that even before a patient gets myopic, even before a child gets myopic, they are actually experiencing the largest growth in axial length that they're going to experience a year and a half before they become myopic. So what does that say to you? It says, if I can stop that, if I can do something meaningful to make that smaller, that increment of growth smaller, I'm going to make a huge impact on this young human being, the positive. I'm going to reduce all of this thinking here. And in order to do that in our field, you're going to have to treat kids, and you're going to have to treat kids before they're symptomatic. And the only way you can do that, let's say you have a 2-year-old in your chair and it's an at-risk individual, it's low in hyperopia already, the parents are myopic, maybe severely myopic, and I need to start treating this patient. Well, right now, all you can do is a compound pharmacy that, if you want to treat this 2-year-old with a drop, which would be the easiest way to go about this. I can't really see another application other than eye drops would be the best way to treat, to deal with a patient that's young. Easiest way also, most effective. And so you're going to treat this patient. Right now we're dealing with a compound pharmacy. Who knows what you're getting? Half the time it's expensive. Does it even if it's a zero point zero 0.01 or 0.025 or zero point zero 0.05? Is it going to be that in 15 days from now? Does it degrade rapidly? The potency, does it diminish by the 30-day mark? Have you refrigerated it properly? These kinds of things. There's all these question marks, and then you're going to talk to that parent about treating this. And if you're not talking about an FDA-approved device, you're gonna have a hard time. I mean, I would myself as coming in and talking about it, I would have a hard time unless we have an FDA approval. With an FDA approval, you're gonna say, "You know what? This is approved. I'm gonna treat this non-symptomatic child because I wanna prevent myopia. I wanna prevent the level of myopia that's possible here." And everybody's on the same page, and it makes the doctor's job a lot easier, make everybody's job a lot easier. Plus, this drop is amazing. The Sydnexis low dose atropine drop is very stable, and it's very stable for a long period of time, and it's less expensive for everybody. So it's just a win-win situation, and puts a big smile on my face. I mean, let's get this thing done. This is the core thing with myopia management. This is where we need to put all our focus at the moment because, no pun intended there, but we're talking about eyes and vision. But
Right.
this is where we're going to put it. In preventive care, we're going to prevent that level of myopia that we saw before. Maybe we can't stop it entirely, but man, Sydnexis, 75% effectiveness on emerging myopes, okay, the progressing ones, 75% effective on that, as far as a drop. And, to take that axial length growth that's possible and then to reduce that by 75%, that's huge. I mean, that's the ball game right there. Later on,
Right.
and work on other things. So, but
Yeah,
this
and
is this is a core thing for us.
Carrie, I want to, for sake of playing devil's advocate, I want to give a little bit of pushback on what you said because I agree with you, obviously. But what do you say to like an optometrist who says, "How am I supposed to treat myopia if it's not even symptomatic? If I'm, what am I supposed to be looking at? Like, how am I supposed to feel confident to talk to a parent or even use low dose atropine if I'm not even seeing the usual signs that the child is myopic?"
There are some, I mean, okay, there's a, with a 2-year-old, you're gonna have to use a retinoscope and then to figure out what the power of the eye is, how if they're hyperopic or not. But there are indications here that they can have, and, one of them is the actual amount of hyperopia that the patient has at the time. In other words, there's a very effective charts we've done now that chart out different ages and say, if the child isn't that hyperopic at that point, you have a at-risk patient for myopia. So we already know that, even in cases of low hyperopia at appropriate ages, this might as well, this is it. You're going to have to act on that. But the other things that you're gonna have in your favor is the fact that you're gonna have parental history, to go by, and grandparents, whatever it is. Very strong SIB history, these other things besides looking at that patient, and I would hope Matt, it's a switch in thinking. It's like we're asking a profession now to flip the switch here and to go from looking at the myopia as being, one of the reasons why the patient comes in and you're going to sell a pair of glasses or gonna do a contact lenses treatment of that. Now you're going to look at myopia as being the disease process it really is and treating it. We're going to turn the whole tables and become a preventive care profession, just like our dental colleagues. And what that's going to do in one fell swoop is that's going to open up the avenue for us doing preventive care checkups like dentists do every 6 months or so. You'll see at-risk patients to make sure that they're doing okay. And you'll do that for the at-risk ages, we can go to 12 to 14 years of age. And you're not gonna use vision care plans to do this with. This will be a medical diagnosis. This will be something that's been, approved as a disease process, and you'll be able to bill it out medically to the medical insurance, which is a whole different ballgame than what we're talking about here with BCPs. Going through the medical model is going to be incredibly different. We've already seen that happening in our medical optometry. It's time for myopia, which is their main, this is it. Like
Yeah,
dental hygiene and decay, myopia is it for optometry. And
yeah.
this is time to flip that switch and start, pushing. We need this whole profession to push this forward, from the AOA on down to push it forward that this is a disease and it needs to be treated as one. We need disease classification for this condition.
And I think that the potential of that, like you just said, is absolutely stellar.
It is, and it's a core thing too. It's core. It's critical to our center, to our core. It's a fundamental piece. You're going to begin your treatment of that patient. Hopefully, you'll be looking at patients and treating them before they even get to school. I would recommend it like at 2 years at least, or younger.
Yeah,
And looking at those
yeah,
patients, and you're gonna be treating a lot of those patients who are at risk with Sydnexis 101 and FDA-approved drug. So, it's gonna
yeah.
make your life a
It's
lot easier, and it's gonna make those children you're treating their whole life a lot healthier.
I'm just super excited that this is getting another look. It's getting a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, we need to push it over the finish line, man. This is
Hmm.
time. It's a core piece
For
to our
sure.
what we're gonna be doing. I think one other thought here is that just think about this for a moment. If we can treat them early, if we can treat a pre-myopic patient, before they become nearsighted and effectively, it's gonna take a lot of pressure off the parents, it's gonna take a lot of pressure off the practitioner, and it's gonna take a lot of pressure off our industry, our health industry, because these patients pre-treated like this will have much less, they won't be getting as nearsighted as they could have, and it won't require us to really, pull all the stops, a lot of them, because we're dealing with this runaway progressive myopia. So it gives us all a head start to doing something about this. And a lot of times, a lot of my patients will be feeling like they're victims, because they're getting nearsighted. There's not much they can do about it. Here's something that they can do about it. It's a very empowering thing.
Right.
It's gonna empower the whole industry. It's gonna change our profession
Hmm.
entirely. Going forward, if we can do this, adopt this. It stands for preventing myopia. Do it like, we've done everything else in life. We make a big challenge. The space race, the war on cancer, the war on poverty, whatever it is. Let's take it on. Let's do
Right.
whatever we can do. Let's energize this industry to fight this thing. This unnatural process that happens to our eyes. It's an eye disease.
Breaks my heart every time I read or hear from a parent who says, "Matt, like we brought our child in year after year. We were told there's nothing we can do about this. Now they're -6, and I'm only finding out about like Ortho-K or whatever right now. And it's like, this is why this is so passionate for me. It is a passion point for me, is I don't want that to happen anymore. I want parents
Right.
to be able to be aware that there is this FDA approved option in low dose atropine or the Stellus lenses or whatever the case may be, whatever the future has in store for us. I just want this problem to be addressed in the best possible way. Um, all right, Cary, thank you so much. I think that we've thoroughly covered that. And for if audience, if you enjoyed this episode, there's more waiting for you on my Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com. We do a regular weekly podcast. There's a bonus segment for our subscribers. We also do a weekly article. They've been written by Cary so far, and we're going to be opening that up to new voices as well. So if you are interested in myopia management, definitely check it out. Myopiamindset.substack.com is how you do so. Cary, thanks again so much. And for everybody else, we will see you at the next one.